Good evening, everyone. My name is John Fountain, the Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Education. We have two more awards, or two more students that we're going to recognize this evening. This first student was already recognized, and he's being recognized again for, it's more of an achievement that he, in a process that he went through last year. Our math director, Mr. Dunst, wrote a really eloquent paragraph about this accomplishment, and I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to say that in math world, there's a lot of mathematics competitions that some really, really highly intelligent students perform in. And I've looked at some of these tests, and I don't understand them at all. So what I can say is that Brandon Epstein does understand them, and that Brandon Epstein does compete in these events, and he does it incredibly well enough that he was selected to represent the United States of America in international competition over the summer. And it's really something where words can't explain exactly how rare it is to have a student of this caliber. And so I want Brandon to know, Brandon, we're extremely proud of you. Come on up. The last student that we're going to recognize, certainly not least, and it's certainly not the last time that you're going to hear her name. Rini Bonsali is a student in Half Hollow Hills, and I say student in Half Hollow Hills because she's been taking classes in several buildings for the last couple of years. But Rini Bonsali was a Broadcom Masters semifinalist. This is essentially the Siemens competition for middle school students. Just as selective, just as competitive, just as difficult to achieve this accomplishment. So we also want to recognize Rini Bonsali. Thank you very much.
Get used to it. They should be doing this a lot.
Right.
I wanted to offer just a few comments. First to Dr. Catapano, I just wanted to say thank you for taking care of my alma mater in such a great way. It is absolutely wonderful to see what's going on here at Hills West, and the stewardship that you have provided is outstanding, and we really appreciate all you and the staff here do. It's a great building. Walking in here, I feel like I'm coming home, and I just appreciate everything you do, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd also like to recognize Mr. Richard Haas, who is the president of the Teachers Association, Lori Levine, who is the president of the Bearers Association, and Wendy Nadalone, and the board members that are here from the PTA Council. We really appreciate everything that you do, and thank you for taking time out of your evening to attend, so thank you. And Vicki Genovese, who is president of High School West, thank you as well for being here this evening. We appreciate it. other thing that I did want to address was, the happenings in our school district this past week. I think it's important that we address those points. So last week, as many of you know, there were some interesting words written on the inside of a bathroom stall, which said, bomb 1 o'clock Friday, or bomb Friday 1 o'clock. I'm not sure if I've got the order correct or incorrect. But the bottom line was, when we received information that had in fact been written inside the bathroom stall, what we did was we immediately contacted the Suffolk County Police Department. And after they reviewed the situation and looked at the situation, their recommendation to us was that they didn't necessarily think that the threat was the threat was creditable. And that, in fact, they did not recommend that we close the building. They did not recommend that we do anything other than go about our business in a normal fashion. When we heard that from them, we understood their position and didn't accept that. What we felt was important was making sure that there was absolutely no opportunity for any of our children to experience, what that threat may have, in fact, revealed. So as a result of that, in working with the district, and really, our district leadership should be commended for the work that they did. They were working many hours. They were working late at night. They were really trying to figure out what's the best way to handle this, what's the best way to communicate with the community, what's the best way to make sure that we're protecting our children. And every step through this process clearly was one that was viewed as if, what if my child was in that building? So every decision, every conversation was based upon that reality and that thought process. So given the fact that Suffolk said, it's okay, we don't need to close the building, we said to Suffolk, would you send in bomb dogs? They said only if there is a bomb threat, and then we have to call in the bomb squad. And we thought that didn't make sense given the fact that the police had already investigated and determined that was not necessary. So to be conservative and to be appropriate, we made sure that on Thursday, every person that walked in the building had their backpacks checked. We also did the same thing on Friday. We also found a private company, and Mr. O'Farrell was able to locate a company for us that would provide bomb-sniffing dogs, and those bomb-sniffing dogs went through the building and assessed the building, and there was no threat according to the dogs. So again, this was all stuff that we chose to do over and above the recommendation of Suffolk County Police. Fortunately, it was a threat by a child, and it was an idle threat. We treated it as if it were a very significant and serious threat, and we will, do that to protect our children. I have children that are in high school. If this were east instead of west, it would have been the same protocol in making sure that we protect our children. That is of paramount importance. The good news is that our conservative nature was for naught because nothing occurred, and we thank God that nothing occurred, and we hope that nothing occurs in the future. We will do everything we can to learn from this experience. Clearly, any experience of this nature provides learning opportunities, but given the situation and where we were at that time and how we handled it at that time, I have to tell you that I'm incredibly proud of the way that our administration handled that. I'm incredibly proud of the way the board handled it, and I appreciate everything that transpired. The good news is we're all safe. The good news is we're here tonight, and the good news is our children are all safe. After we had cleared that hurdle on Friday, we had the ability to go to Friday Night Lights at Hills East. It's a great community event for the Hills East community. It is a great event that provides the children the opportunity to participate athletically with a larger crowd, and there's just a different energy on a Friday night when the lights are up and you're playing in front of 1,000 children from your school. and it is an absolute wonderful opportunity for our kids. We also recognize that when you provide wonderful opportunity, that sometimes there are individuals who choose to look at that as an opportunity for something other than what was intended. And unfortunately for us, on Friday night, there were people who are not associated with the school. They are not students of the school. They did not have the need to be there. They chose to be there, and they chose to be involved in an altercation away from the field. This occurred at halftime, not after the game, not at 10:30 at night, but this was at halftime of the game. And unfortunately, there was a problem. The problem has been reported in the press. Some of it is what has been reported is correct, some of it is incorrect. The bottom line is, once the situation was handled by the police, it became a police matter, and the district was no longer involved. So as a result of that, as soon as those squad cars came and they started to assess the situation, it became their property, it became their purview, it became their area of expertise. So as a result of that, people from the district that were in attendance at the game, Kelly Fallon was at the game, many of the board members were at the game, John O'Farrell was at the game, and others, were trying to work with the police to find a way to manage the situation to the benefit of all. And what I mean by the benefit of all, where there were a number of people whose cars were not released because the cars were parked in what was deemed to be an active crime scene. There was a tremendous amount of frustration from people because they couldn't get their cars. And when you think about it, our superintendents are at the field until 10:30, 11, 11:30 at night, waiting until everybody was allowed to access their cars and leave. And that is pretty amazing to me and pretty special to think that they would give of themselves to that degree. The bottom line is, Suffolk County Police will continue to investigate the situation. They will continue to manage the situation. From a school district perspective, we are not in the communication loop because it is outside of our purview. It is something that the Suffolk County Police Department has not provided us with a police report. We are unsure if they will, but the bottom line is that they own it at this point in time. If they need us to help them in any way, we would be more than happy to, but at this point in time, it really is siloed in their world and outside of our purview. So those are the two events that took place last week. That's how those events were handled. Again, both are tremendous learning experiences. As a person who grew up in Half Hollow Hills, as a person who chose to move back to Half Hollow Hills, so I've been here since 1967, I can tell you that I never ever would have expected those two things from my community, but I will tell you that I'm really proud of the way that my community reacted to those two situations. So I just wanted to make sure that I made that statement on behalf of the board and administration, and again to thank the parties responsible for really giving of themselves under extraordinary circumstances. No one's job description says, how do you handle bomb threats, unless you're in law enforcement. Nobody's job description says, how do you handle physical altercations that require police involvement and ambulances taking people away. That's not in anyone's job description, and to be quite honest, not having that in the job description, but handling it the way they did, I'm incredibly proud of them. So, with that, I guess we should move on to the appropriate agenda for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Garenswald. This evening with us, we have Mrs. Allison Strand, our Executive Director of Pupil Personnel Services, and she is going to provide the community with a school health service update.
Thank you. I apologize, we want to use the screen. I don't know how that impacts the board and you see things. So.
Go slide.
as we get that started, I'll try to get this working. Mike, you did that very well, Dr. Catapano. It's a trick. Okay. Okay. Well, good evening, and thank you, Mrs. Fallon. Thank you for inviting me here this evening, members of the Board of Education and the community. What I'd like to do tonight is share with you some of the work we've done within the district to keep our kids and our staff safe. Every year at the onset of school, we all have experienced what we would call our similar seasonal flu. Thank you so much. Seasonal flus and viruses that we experience. Specifically this year, the media, the news, we've seen a lot of information about these viruses, especially Ebola. We have the enterovirus, the D68, and what we thought we would do was be very proactive with our school nurses and our staff, along with Mrs. Fallon and Deputy Superintendent Dr. Harrigan, is we met with our school nurses, as we do regularly. This year what we decided to do was meet and set up, instead of just following our typical protocols, which have always worked and kept our kids safe, what we decided we'd do is we'd cover some of the highlights of things that were present and very important to us in keeping everyone safe. Most recently, some of you may have heard from your schools and your nurses about the changes to immunizations that New York State Department of Health have made for our children. When this happens, what parents start to understand is that the way the immunizations were given may not necessarily be given the same way, and we have to take a closer look at that. So we're going to discuss that. The next piece is the enterovirus as well as Ebola. So in an effort to kind of respond to that, we put some things into place. We all met and sat down and talked about what we thought we needed to put into place to protect our students. The first part was to talk about the immunizations and changes. All of our information comes from the Department of Health as well as the CDC and the New York State Health, Nurses Health website. So what we did was we came in together and looked at the immunization changes and who it impacted. It impacted K to 12, more so from elementary to middle school than to the high school per se, but there were still children who needed immunization updates. So what we did was we decided to create a letter in May after the new changes came out, and we sent that to all of our families within the district to inform them these changes were coming and they were going to be required for kids to be in school. What we did after that was, when we came back in September, each and every child's review of their immunization folder was done by hand to ensure that the information we provided was accurate and up to date. And when a parent was notified that their child may be missing an immunization, we gave them a call and we created a letter. So the letter was sent out with the general information for everyone. Following that, we decided we're going to call our parents and say, listen, your child may be missing a component of your immunization requirements. We need you to get that. When those pieces, and many of us, a lot of us families went ahead and took care of those. For those that were still outstanding, we created a letter, which some of you may have seen or heard about, which says, we've notified you, it's important for your child's safety and those around you. We'd like you to get that done, and you need to get that done. And what the word that's been out there a little bit is called exclusion. And what we do is we don't want to exclude anyone, and that's why we went to great efforts to notify families individually about what was required. So we personally notified them in the mail. And that letter indicated the date the letter was written, as well as the date that if we didn't have the information, that they would be excluded. You will be notified, the families would be notified. In terms of that, we don't want to exclude kids, and we're going to every length to do it in a way. If a parent says, I have an appointment, and they've secured that appointment, we're going to wait for that. But the exclusion date is included in those letters, and we are doing that in order to keep everyone safe in the school district. So far so good, folks. We're getting all our kids in, parents are responding, we're getting doctor's appointments, we're getting doctor's notes, we're getting proof of immunization. So I think so far we're in a successful place. Okay, enterovirus. I know that the news has shared other school districts, places. Ultimately, the enterovirus has been around. The D68 is a more specific type of virus, And what we've done is we've kind of acknowledged what are the great ways to keep our kids safe, what to do so we don't get this virus. It is what they would call a respiratory of nature. So the best way to do that is to inform students and staff how to avoid getting that. And what we've done is we've provided from the CDC a copy of the steps that you take to avoid it. Washing hands, not being in contact with a sick person, covering up when you cough, when you sneeze, things that we take for granted, but things that we think are important to notify the whole district, the whole school, just to continue to be aware and be conscious of it. Ebola. It's frightening for people. People hear it on the news. The CDC reports to us that it cannot be spread through casual contact. But in an effort to ensure the safety of our students and staff, what we've done is we've met with the nurses and we've taken a look at this sheet. I know it's not quite clear maybe for you, but I will tell you what it is a guideline of what we follow. If we have a student come in with similar symptoms, we're going to ask questions. We're not going to interrogate, we're going to gently ask questions that could impact the safety of that student, their family, or the safety of the people here in the district. First and foremost, do you know anybody that's traveled in the areas where Ebola has been known to come from, West Africa? That's the first layer. If there are no questions related to that or similar to that, we're going to consider that kind of a first level. We're going to care for them as though they're sick. We're going to recommend they see their physician, and they're going to be sent home, due to the fact that they're not feeling well. The second level talks about the possibility of being exposed. And there are steps to take. As you can see, it's a flow chart. If you answer yes to one or answer no to another, you'll move to the next steps, and so on for the third level. If in fact there is some concern about that, their nurses will take certain precautionary steps. District-wide, it's a protocol put in place to ensure the safety of that student and those of anyone else around. The hopefulness is that our students here have not been exposed to anyone who's traveled in those areas, but we are aware. So these are the safety precautions. We have posted these throughout the district in all kinds of areas, the laboratories, the nurse's office, anywhere where there's a sink, talking about what to avoid, what to do. These are common things that we tell our children every day, our staff every day. You want to avoid people that are sick. You want to not touch anything that you're not familiar with, any body fluids. If you have any of the following symptoms, they suggest and immediately suggest that you see a medical provider, and we will continue to keep a close watch out for the students who see the nurse and take a look carefully at their symptoms and notify parents immediately. One of the bigger pieces for us is students who come to us from other places. We need to make sure that our district registrar is educated and informed. They need to make sure when these people come that their documentation is clear. They will be asked specific questions regarding travel history. And in the likely event that we come across a student who's registering here that have had family or friends travel to these areas, the deputy superintendent will be notified right away, and we will follow suit at that time. At this time, we have not had that experience to date. Ultimately, these are the resources we utilized, as of course I am not a physician, nor do I claim to know a lot about Ebola enterovirus, but I do know a lot now. And that, for the purpose of tonight, was to ensure safety, the health and safety and welfare of all our students and staff. Thank you.